I got a panel of experts tonight. Founder and Executive Director of the National Security Institute, Jamil Jaffer. Senior politics reporter for Axios, Mark Caputo, who interviewed the president just yesterday. Executive Director of Georgetown Institute of Politics and Public Service, Mo Alethi. And Republican strategist, Leslie Shedd. Good to have all you guys here. I'm going to go with the person who I just referenced, Mark Caputo, to start this off for us, because the president, perhaps surprisingly, effectively admitted to you a number of things that may surprise people. One was that he understood, he seemed, to know just how bad, perhaps, things could be for the economy if it kept going. Were you surprised by that kind of, candor and admission?
He wants out. And so now that he's found a way out, he is all in. That is, he is willing to admit now that while in the past he said, I'm not thinking about these things and negotiating with Iran, now at least he is. And one of the things he said to me, he made sure to stress repeatedly, stocks are up, oil is down, and the word he used is gusher. We've hit basically a gusher, as if he discovered his own oil field. And it's sort of emblematic of the fact that he just feels relieved.
I mean, the idea that this is almost an epiphany seems odd, given the fact that many told him beforehand he shouldn't get into this. These were the issues that were going to happen. Does it surprise you, or would it have an effect in terms of maybe support for the president that he is saying this now?
I mean, I think the president has always said very clearly that he cares about both things. Like, he is capable of saying, I'm the commander in chief, and I'm going to make sure that we are having a successful military campaign, while also keeping in mind economic pain here at home. I think that he's looking at this and saying, we need to find a way to end this war. He believes that he has found it. We've got the Strait of Hormuz reopened, which is great. Let's get the oil flowing. And then let's see, because he has also made it very clear that if Iran does not honor the agreement, if they start attacking them again, if war starts again, he is not afraid to shut them down very quickly.
Here's the problem. He said in the past, J.D. Vance, the words don't matter. It's the actions in the end. President Trump has talked about not being as concerned with the economy. And people have a long enough memory, I think, to recall these statements and still believe you can walk and chew gum at the same time and know that we're not privy to every piece of information. But we're also looking at what's going on in terms of his alliances. And notably, the president called Prime Minister Netanyahu a warrior after days of blasting Israel's action in Lebanon. I mean, just watch what he told. Well, I don't tell you. He told Mark this. Just listen to this idea about his relationship with Netanyahu and how that works.
They have a lot of respect for me, and they do as I say.
Okay. I'm sure they have a response to that, being almost commanded by the president of a different country. But will Trump be able to keep him in line?
I mean, look, it doesn't look likely, right? I mean, as we've seen thus far, the president keeps saying, hey, I need this thing in Lebanon to quiet down, but Hezbollah keeps shooting missiles at Iran, Israel keeps shooting back, right? This is not going to stop because Iran doesn't want it to stop. Iran is running Hezbollah. They're encouraging them to attack Israel, and Israel's doing what we would do. They're responding in kind. The idea that the prime minister is not going to fight back is laughable, and the president shouldn't expect that. The craziest thing the president said, that wasn't even that. At the G7, he was sitting there with the Emir of Qatar, and he says, you know what, I told Bibi, don't worry about Hezbollah. My guy in Syria, the former al-Qaeda operative, right, is going to take care of Hezbollah. I mean, what are we talking about here? The president of the United States calling on al-Qaeda to help take care of Hezbollah? I mean, we are in crazy town, and we're undermining our allies and supporting our adversaries. We're giving hundreds of billions of dollars to Iran. I mean, I'm a Republican. Ted Cruz is exactly right. I don't want the supreme leader, whether it's Ayatollah Khamenei or his son, Mojtaba, getting $300 billion, not $24 billion of sanctions relief, the same pallets of cash that President Trump rightly attacked President Obama for giving to the Iranian regime. He's now giving. It's the same frozen assets. It was never American money. It was never money for the Treasury. It was Iranian frozen assets for Obama. It's Iranian frozen assets under Trump. This is a disaster.
It's about packaging. Good.
Yeah, the difference is President Obama gave that money after we had already verified, right? After we'd gone in and checked to see if they were living up to the terms of the deal. Donald Trump just gave it to them beforehand, before we even began the negotiations. Right? We're now supposed to, the memorandum that we signed simply said, we're now going to spend the next 60 days talking about it. Iran has said, we're not, we'll talk about nukes. We'll talk about the straits after you pay us. That's a very, very big difference from the situation that the president's been attacking.
So how do Democrats play that? Because on the one hand, they're going to point out the obvious unpopularity, let's just say, of a war. The Republican scathing criticism of the memorandum of understanding that doesn't actually detail everything, but yet they still have to, navigate a kind of minefield of supporting an American action to end a war without alienating voters who say, well, this is the best we're going to get now.
Right. Look, I think we should all be happy if this gets us to the end of fighting.
Nobody's ever happy.
That's true.
We're all happy. But yes,
look,
there
we
you
should
go.
be happy if it brings us to an end to the fighting. The question that I think Americans are going to be asking themselves is what we get at the end of this, was it worth the squeeze? Was the juice worth the squeeze? When we went in saying it had to be about nukes, we don't know if we're going to be able to negotiate that yet. We went in saying, as a result of going in, the Straits of Hormuz are now closer to being under Iranian control than they were before. And while gas prices have ticked down over the past couple of days, we haven't begun the negotiations yet. And so these oil prices are going to continue to be volatile.
But it's one thing, and Trump expects for Democrats to criticize him. It's almost maybe for him, just totally par for the Trump golf course. But see, that was good. But then when Republicans do it, they have been punished severely by him in terms of his support, his attack, his putting people against them. What can those Republicans expect? Does he have an insight into that?
I asked the president, are any Republicans going to pay the price for opposing you? And after a little pushing, he basically said no.
Did you believe that statement?
You don't. I believed that when he said it was true,
Okay.
but I don't necessarily believe it will remain true. Is that if people oppose him and become nettlesome, he'll start attacking them. That's just what he does. He's a counterpuncher, and sometimes he's just a haymaker in and of himself. But Trump's fundamental gambit here is this. And I've been a longtime believer of the idea that ultimately Americans care a lot more about gas prices and inflationary pressures than they do about the Straits of Hormuz and these different matters and $300 billion in a fund and whatever kind of money it is. And so if he can keep the negotiations going and if the oil continues to flow and if gas prices drop, it's going to be a win, and that's how he's going to sell it to Republicans and tell them to get on board.
100% agree with that. It's just, we all care about foreign policy. I spend most of my time talking about it and all the intricacies behind it. But what most American voters care about is their own lives, right? They're working very hard. They're not following the news every single day. They care about getting food on the table, about being able to drive their kids to school safely, and they care about gas prices. And if we can get these gas prices back down, they're already starting to drop, that is what they will remember.
Well, they also, go ahead.
I was going to say, the Iranians also get a vote in this, though, right? They
sure do.
They get,
and so the Israelis.
And they have shown that they know how to play the long game in this whole thing. They are willing to withstand a whole lot of pain because they know that they can shut down the global economy and they can screw with President Trump just by turning off the spigot.
One of the things that I've been told by people who have been negotiating on behalf of the administration is there's a belief that Iran is willing to suffer the consequences of a bombardment much more than being broke, and they really want money. And so the gambit here for Trump is to offer their ability to sell oil and the promise of this other fund, but nothing is necessarily set in stone except for the flow of oil and the money they can make off of it now.
The leverage that obviously has shifted, what does this mean in terms of the negotiations and the positions of power or strength that both will have over the next 60 days?
Well, this is the whole problem. We won the war. We beat Iran down. We took out 70% of their ballistic missile launch capability, 70% of their drone launch capability, a huge part of their Navy. We took them down, and then we lost the negotiation, right? The world's greatest negotiator completely blew the negotiation in part because he wasn't willing to take American casualties on the Strait of Hormuz, in part because he wasn't willing to go back to bombing Iran, even after Iran repeatedly violated the very ceasefire agreement it had made over and over again. The deal was, we're going to open the strait. They didn't do it.
We get the panel with us longer. Everyone stand by. Panel's back with me. Jamil, look, you're an attorney. The idea that a judge would say, okay, put it in writing, that what you say is actually the case. It's not unusual for them to request it. That's why we have motion practices in this country and arguments that are written and law and evidence supporting it Why is this treated this way by this DOJ?
Yeah, I mean, this is crazy, right? There are no separation of powers concerns by a federal judge asking the Justice Department to say in official form that we're not going to do the thing that my order said you can't do.
Right.
Like, that's just how it works, right? You don't have to, he doesn't have to rely on the oral statements of the Attorney General or the acting Attorney General, right? He can say, I want a statement from the Department of Justice in writing, under oath, that does not implicate any separation of powers concerns. It is not compelled testimony. That's ridiculous. And yet, here we are.
And this is, of course, Todd Blanche. He wants to be the permanent Attorney General. Is this going to somehow derail that for him? I suspect not.
Maybe. I mean, it depends on how mad the Senate is. And at this point, Trump has sort of had it with the Senate, whether it's Todd Blanche or Bill Pulte, his Director of National Intelligence, his demand that they pass the SAVE Act, their refusal to pass FISA. All of these things are sort of tied together. I'm not a lawyer, to be very clear. But I've gained enough experience watching how this game plays out to know that go ahead, judge, fight this. It's going to get appealed, and I'm pretty sure that if passed as prologue, DOJ is going to win on this one, and the judge isn't, because they're going to argue, no, the judge has no right to tell them this, and Donald Trump at a certain point can decide he's going to pursue the weaponization fund in a different way. And so ultimately, this is the fight DOJ wants to have. It's a conversation they'd like us to have, because you know what? Trump doesn't want to talk about Iran. He'd prefer to talk about this. So that's what we're talking about.
I'm not so sure the judiciary would cede that level of authority, because
I think this judiciary.
Well, I think it's having them say essentially that my orders, you can thumb your nose at it and not even respond in writing when you say something. Stranger things have happened, but we are in that world as well.
I think what's happening here, though, is that it's duplicative. It's unnecessary. Not only did Todd Blanche say this in testimony before Congress on multiple occasions that this is dead, the actual court filings in this case that are signed by the Associate AG Woodward, which is one of the three people that she needs to get this, signed declaration from, says in those court documents that he signed that the fund is dead. So there are multiple statements that have been made in writing and orally in front of the judge, in front of Congress, that says
why is one
that
more?
It's dead.
Why is one more?
At what point in time do you have to say enough is enough?
Well, when there is a credibility issue, and by the way, when you're talking about the times that a judge requires there to be something in writing, this happens all the time, not just for a Todd Blanche or an attorney general. It happens when someone stands up and says, Your Honor, I'm going to abide by the terms of my probation. And they say, I swear I'm going to stay away from this person. I've got a protective order. And the judge says, okay, well, here's what you're going to sign to. You're going to agree to those things. That's the everyday person. So why wouldn't an attorney general hopeful say to themselves, I'll put it in writing because I stand by my word.
That's weak. Because that's weak. And his boss views that as weakness. And at this point, this is the fight they want to have. Okay, judicial branch, you want to tell the executive what to do? Ultimately, in the constitutional system, the president is only accountable to Congress, which has to impeach and remove him. And is it going to get to that level? No. Now, one day, may Blanche decide to just sign this off, but they want to have this fight for a little while to flex. They want to exercise power and tell the judicial branch they can't do this.
But what with the congressional branch?
Todd Blanche may have said it, but the president hasn't, right? The president was asked, do you also think this is dead? And he would not say yes. Yep. He thinks it's still a great idea. That's probably why Todd Blanche won't sign it, because his boss still wants it, still thinks it's a good idea. And Donald Trump doesn't really care about the judiciary.
Well, he does. He thinks that they have no right to tell his agents.
He believes this entire term has been him flexing, saying the executive branch has absolute power. The executive branch ought to be able to do, even said it in your interview, that he's not seeing any limitations on his power. And so he wants to have this fight. The thing is, so do Democrats. And I think a lot of Democrats who see that this slush fund is incredibly unpopular, not just amongst Democrats, amongst independents, and increasingly Republican voters, heading into a midterm, being able to say, this is the fight he wants versus fighting to make your life easier.
Well, here's the fight he's having tonight. It's about algae. I kid you not. I mean, there was a lengthy Truth Social post. The president is now scapegoating the algae that's in the pool, in the reflecting pool. He's blaming the problem on vandals.
Those algae vandals.
Mother Nature is a vandal. He has a new post out. You can see parts of it right there, of course. And he is claiming that an ABC reporter tried to rip the rubber off the surface, and police are now investigating. I hate to turn to you, Leslie,
No,
on
I
this,
know,
but you
I'm
know
a
what? Okay, I'd like to ask, why
I'm a
is this?
Republican too.
You are okay.
I'm trying to defend
you
the
want
algae.
in? Let's go. Okay, well, I'm asking is why
wants to
is
defend
this?
the algae?
Why is this consuming him on a Friday night? I mean, there are literally very pressing issues right now. Why is this the one he wants?
So I want to again say I think the president has the capability of focusing on multiple things at once. But to me,
Yes, algae and rubber.
and I think that to me, I don't understand why people are so upset that the president is trying to make Washington, D.C. more beautiful for its 250th. I think for him, he's excited that he's the president for this big, important moment in our history. And he wants to make sure that the city looks beautiful. And he's frustrated by the fact that it's
That he hired an idiot who screwed
It's
up
not going
the
well.
pool, right, or the pond, or whatever it is.
I don't think the question is whether or not people are angry that he wants to make it beautiful. Everyone wants beautification. Fine, got it. They're talking about the prioritization of topics like this in light of other matters that are well, he may think equally, but are far more pressing.
The president's got a lot going on, and I agree with Leslie. He can do a lot. He's already demonstrated he can do a lot at one time. He can manage a lot of things. The question is, why is he managing this one, right? Why is this one so important? Who cares about the reflecting pool when you got Iran, you got Ukraine, you got China? There's a lot going on in the world. The American people are suffering with inflation, with higher gas prices. There's a lot going on in this country. The reflecting pool at the Lincoln Memorial is not the thing for the President of the United States at 10 p.m. at night to be writing on Truth Social. It is.
Did you ask him?
I didn't ask him that, but I can give an easy answer. Why is he focusing on this? Because it's on TV. I'm serious. We're focusing on it too. So the president consumes a lot of media, and he has this love-hate relationship with John Carl. Sees John Carl out there being I didn't see the clip, but allegedly peeling up paint. And the president's like, screw that guy. Like,
right.
you want to talk about that? Fine, we're going to talk about that. So that's what he's doing.
All right, let's test it. I want to talk about Summer House on Bravo right now, Mr. President.
Yes.
I don't know why they didn't rehire Wes, but do you want to truth social about that? Where's my phone?